Representative Renzi, tell us about the trip that you just completed to the Middle East, and how has it helped you in your understanding of the conflict that we find, or that they find themselves in?
We had an opportunity to travel to Israel. We got up into the Haifa area. While we were at an intersection up there, the air raid sirens went off, and had an opportunity to go a little bit north and go down into a bunker with a family and really feel and see what it is that, that they feel and see, and the conditions as it relates to the incoming rounds. We traveled up and spent 5 hours on the Israeli-Lebanon border, and we saw both incoming rockets as well as outgoing tank firing. And overall, we met with the Israeli troops. We were in that combat zone and kind of hunkered down, and unfortunately saw some of the real tragedy that people are going through in that area.
And what did they talk to you about as far as the U.S. and its involvement in the situation?
Well, the Israelis very much were thankful for our involvement. We're thankful for the message that we were there to show unity, to stand with them, to present them with the resolution that was passed by Congress that said that they have a right to defend themselves and to respond to violence and terrorism. The Arabs that we met with, I mean, you've got Arabs and Jews living side by side. All of them want peace. They want to be able to go to the beaches. It was summertime there. They want to get up north into the resorts and enjoy their vacationing. They worry about the tourism and the effect on the economy. So you saw, you see the sense that everybody has seen too much war in that area, and they're very much desirable of peace.
What should be the U.S. involvement in trying to establish or trying to sustain a ceasefire in that region?
There's a couple of factors that come into place that we could see. First and foremost, if we could get the hostages back, even the generals that we met with, and we met with the Mossad, we met with the Israeli Defense Forces, we met with the Prime Minister. The hostages are a critical component to their first step. And there may need to be some sort of hostage negotiation. There may need to be some sort of prisoner releases as it relates to other Arab prisoners. I think that's going to be a really good first step. This idea of a buffer zone, certainly that everybody's been talking about, is something that is going to need to be put in place. Also, as you move up north, whether it be the airport or whether it be along the Syrian-Lebanese border, there's going to have to be some sort of control of the checkpoints where the weapons are flowing through Syria, originating in Iran, in order for Israel to feel secure enough to be able to pull back and begin peaceful negotiations.
Our conversation regarding the Mideast conflict continues with Representative Rick Renzi, Republican of Arizona, who's just back from a trip to the region, and we'll continue to talk about that as the discussion goes along. The numbers are there on the screen. We invite you to join in the conversation. Our first call for the representative comes from Ashburn, Virginia, on our line supporting President Bush. Good morning.
Hey, Congressman Renzi, you're doing a great job. Thank you for going over to the Middle East.
Thank you.
And just want to hear a little bit about how the fighting is, and how were you in any danger at all?
We had one little, thank you. We had one little incident where myself and Chairman Hoekstra of the Intelligence Committee were sitting behind the drivers. Now, we're in an armored vehicle, so we're not in any danger that certainly the civilians are out there. But as we were driving up on a mountain road, we had a Katyusha rocket come in about 1,000 yards out to the right, and we both looked at each other, and it was a little bit of a pucker factor there. And quickly, though, we got into an area where we were along with the Israeli army, so we felt a little more safe. But yeah, I was, as you may have heard or has read, I was on an airplane that lost an engine going over Iraq back in December, and now to see a Katyusha rocket, I've said, well, I don't know how many 9 lives I have, but I've used up 2. So
now, when you're traveling on these CODELs, and especially in war or combat situations, do you travel with a contingent of American forces, security,
yes, sir.
U.S. military security for this?
Yeah, it's a combination typically of U.S. military security, what they call a Raven team, or we'll have with us State Department security officers. They're very good. Sometimes if we're in Iraq, we'll have Blackwater, which are our contracted security force, and they're incredible individuals who are there specifically for protection of congressmen, senators, VIPs who come over, dignitaries. They typically are very keened in to the intelligence of what's going on, and they focus very much on assassination attempts and deterring that kind of an effort. So you feel like you're in great hands while you're there.
Our next call for Representative Renzi comes from Chicago, Illinois, on our line supporting Democrats. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Yes, I'm curious why it's never said why no one recognized that Israel captures and assassinates leaders and people from Hamas and the other groups, and then when someone takes some of their people, they think that well, that's such a big thing. But I mean, they'll do something first, and then when somebody responds to it, it seems like that's the first time you hear about anything. You never hear about Israel's thing until you hear about someone else doing something, and then you won't even hear that Israel has done anything, but the other people have to get the response of Israel's situation.
Sir?
Well, I appreciate your view, caller. It's so hard to decide who's done what to who first. It really is. You can go back in time and go back in time, and next thing you know, you're arguing about issues as it relates that are 2,000 years old. I think your point's well taken that the violence over there, assassinations of different leaders has gone on for many, many years. I don't view Hezbollah or Hamas as the moral equivalent of Israel. I think that these organizations have wrought terror. In this case that we're talking about right now, and I recognize your point that there's been atrocities, there has been assassinations, there is violence. In what we're talking about right now, a conflict that doesn't involve a territorial dispute, that doesn't involve Israel trying to conquer or to maintain land. They withdrew from Southern Lebanon. They withdrew from that 12-mile buffer zone. UN was supposed to come in and help secure that area. And Hezbollah really attacked for no real reason, killed Israeli soldiers, and, as you know, took hostages. So I understand your point that there's been violence on both sides, but dealing with the current conflict, it was unprovoked.
Dublin, Georgia, you're on the Washington Journal with Representative Rick Renzi.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
There's a couple of items that I do not see addressed in the news. That is, Iran, this conflict did not start until Iran was at their deadline for their nuclear program.
Right.
Also, people call in and condemn Israel, but the Hezbollah are still terrorists. They are firing rockets on citizens.
Yes, sir.
The road, they have never fired a rocket on the Israeli troops that is massed along the border. They are shooting over their heads to kill civilians right on. Now, how can these people, sir, keep calling in and condemning Israel when they are still being attacked by terrorists?
Yeah, you made a great point in the first part of your statement, which is that Iran was coming up on their deadline. We had an opportunity to meet with several of the generals over there in Israel. We met with Abu Damas, the prime minister of the Palestinian Authority, who's still in power, even though Hamas controls the majority of seats over there. All of them will tell you that Iran is playing too much of a role in the Middle East. Here you've got a nation that is cash-rich with the price of oil the way it is. They could do so much good in the region if Iran was being run by a moderate Arab government. Instead, they've got their tentacles out there. They're involved in the Hamas folks. They're involved in Hezbollah. They're involved in Syria. They're involved in Iraq. They're involved in trying to change the dynamic in Jordan and in other areas of the Middle East. A country with so much money that is flush with cash, who could do so much good in the region, is pushing that agenda, that religious fundamentalism, that terrorist agenda throughout the Middle East. And they have tried to change the dynamic by pushing Hezbollah to take and attack Israel and to draw away and to buy more time from their own nuclear development. It's a real good point.
There's an article in this week's Time magazine, and the headline is The View from Inside Iran. Hezbollah may be Tehran's client, but Iranians aren't buying the propaganda. It seems to indicate that Hezbollah may be moving beyond the control or beyond the sphere of Iran and Syria and almost acting independently.
Well, yeah, there's no doubt that Hezbollah has leaders on the ground who, while they receive monies and arms from Iran, don't take their daily direction or their operational control all the way back to Tehran. And they very much have their own agenda. They very much understand the lay of the land in their regional capacity, and they're going forward and conducting their own activities. So I would agree with your comment. But Hezbollah, they've been around for some time, and they've carried out attacks against the United States, as you know, with the Marines, 240 of our Marines, Khobar Towers in Saudi Arabia, and that wasn't necessarily linked to Iran. So they've had a history and a past of working independently and of being violent.
Will direct negotiations or direct contact between the United States and Hezbollah or Hamas bring a ceasefire quicker to the conflict? Is it a factor in bringing a ceasefire to the conflict, or should we just be talking with sovereign states right now?
It's a great point. In the pursuit of peace, you never want to push away anybody from the table who may emerge as a reasonable individual. I don't think, though, that we see anyone in Hezbollah or Hamas that we can negotiate with. Who would sit down with Condoleezza Rice from that organization and really be an individual who could even control? Hamas, I'm not even sure that there's so many factions within Hezbollah and Hamas themselves, I'm not even sure you have a real true decision maker who could control them.
Next call for Representative Renzi comes from Austin, Texas, on our line for others. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. This is we've got a problem here, and what it is 90% of it is based on moral beliefs and religious beliefs.
Yes, sir.
And in the United States, we have choice. We have freedom of religion. Other countries do not have this. And when you've got somebody with